17th, Board of Selectmen. Start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have a very busy night, a number of things going on. We're going to go into an executive session to begin with. Actually, a few housekeeping before then. We plan to be out of executive session around 5:40, is that right?
Correct.
And then we'll come back into our regular session, and we'll go through our agenda until 6 o'clock, at which time we'll go into a public hearing to talk about a proposed amendment, revision to the form of town meeting versus ballot approval of the warrant and other items. So I guess we can get, we've gone through the warrant and bills. Those have been approved. Great.
A motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Motion carries. Minutes?
I went through those, and I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of August 10th.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay. Kim?
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session 406, 6-A-1, land use secretary / town hall personnel.
Very good.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, we'll see you approximately 5:40, if not sooner.
Good.
There you go. We're back online. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we come out of executive session 406, 6-A-1, land use secretary, town hall personnel.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Let me just give a brief update on that executive session. We had an opportunity to actually talk about a couple issues, but in particular, the land use secretary position. As you may have known, we had 2 applicants for that position, and we've decided that we want to reopen and advertise again for that position. We think we need some additional applicants. I think 2 is just not enough. It's an extremely important position that we need to fill. And so one individual has withdrawn. The other individual will still be under consideration, but we would like to get additional applicants in place. So that ad will be posted so that if you see that, you'll understand why. Anything else I should comment on there? Okay, great. At 6 o'clock, we're going to take a break from our agenda here, and we're going to go into a public hearing. So we'll get through as much of this agenda as we can until then. Jennifer, Town Administrator Weekly Update.
So in an effort to save time, I just have 2 things I wanted to mention. We started working on the tax rate calculator. We've working with the treasurer and O'Donnell's and Associates and Karen from RHR Smith. They have all of their assessing work done as of April 1st. So we have our values, our real estate values, personal property values all put into place. We know what the county tax, all the budgets are, so we're starting to work that. We need to get some clarification on some of the undesignated funds. We want to talk to the school about their balances before we can really give you a recommendation on what kind of revenue to move forward. So we're working on it, and hope to commit taxes. I'm optimistic it may be the August 31st meeting if we can pull it off. If not, it'll definitely be the September 7th.
When does that have to be done?
Well, tax bills are due October 14th. By law, you actually don't have to send out a tax bill.
Yeah, but when do we typically send it?
August, first week of September at the latest. The
Okay.
outsourcing company needs about 2 weeks. The property owners like to have the bills for a couple of weeks.
So there'll be an opportunity for a public hearing where we can review the detail of those tax calculations, if I get that correct?
Well, not a public hearing, but at a selectmen's meeting.
Well, there'll be an opportunity at a selectmen meeting to
Yeah, we'll go
disclose
do the
detail.
numbers. Yep, we'll put it up on the screen and go through each line.
So if we, so we set a date and back up one meeting from that, we probably would.
Yep, so
it
we'll
would
do
be
a
meeting
presentation
before, so,
on the
if there are
31st.
any other comments, there'll be an opportunity for that to come in. So really, we got to have this done in August
Yeah.
sometime.
So
Is that
these-
fair?
Yeah, so we're not meeting next week, so at the August
August
31st
31st.
meeting, August 31st, we'll have the presentation, and then if you guys choose, we'll commit the following week.
Yeah. The other thing which we want to understand is what the fiscal '22 operating budget results were for both the school and the town, so that we can consider what kind of, I suspect there'll be a surplus in both of those accounts, and so we want to take that into account and make sure that's all factored into our rate setting and evaluating our reserve balances. Okay?
The only other thing that I want to mention, other than the tax rate, well, actually, two quick things. We are due to start a revaluation in 2023, so O'Donnell's is starting to pull property cards and thinking about putting that together. They're going to come down and have a meeting with you at one of your upcoming selectmen meetings in September to talk about that process, answer any questions, and just walk you through what that kind of looks like.
I was hoping that they would also, as they walk through the process, not so much that they'll be doing it, I would like to understand some of the assumptions and basis for how they draw their conclusions on valuation. They could review that. It would be in a public meeting like this. People could, have an opportunity to see that, ask questions. I'd rather get that out and made available before somebody gets their valuation and wonders, how was this done? So we want that done in a very transparent way.
Okay. The other one is regarding the fire department. So we have posted the fire chief position. We've actually already gotten an application or two in, but we are still looking for members for the commission. So we need three active members of the fire department. We did send the notice over to the chief, so he's got that posted. Selectmen liaison, which is going to be Tom. Warren and Finance is meeting on the 22nd to choose their liaison amongst them. Retired or active member, we are accepting names, but I also did get one. And then once those people are together, the commission will choose one member of the public. So we're taking that list of names as well. So if anybody's interested in serving on that commission, please let me know in writing.
Very good.
That's it.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Great, thank you. Department head committee chair updates.
Yeah, so there actually should be two there. First is forest conservation, and second is going to be the District 1. We asked him to come regarding West Shore
Great.
Drive, but,
Okay, Forest Conservation Committee.
so the chair is here, but I think there's some other members that are going to want to speak as well. So I'm not sure how you want to.
How much time do you think we might
I
need?
think we'll be able to get through the basics, because you're going to want
Can we take some additional, should we wait for the other committee members to
to,
arrive?
no, they're here. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm
he's-
sorry.
I just don't know where they're going to
Misunderstood you.
stand or sit.
Okay.
You'll have one podium.
So, can the chair of the Forest Conservation Committee come forward?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
And maybe you want to just start, Steve, by obviously introducing yourself. It sounds like Tom may not know you, but
I
also
don't.
introduce your other committee members
Yeah,
that are
by
here.
all means, I'm not all that familiar with the farm here tonight,
Yeah.
so. by all means.
It's pretty.
We're going to make it up as we go along.
So Steve Bodkin, Town Forester and Chair of the Forest and Conservation Committee. So part of why we're here tonight, as I understand it, is that we have had brought up a concept of possible conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest within the town. So as the committee chair and as Town Forester, we have talked through the last few years about adopting and implementing a forest management plan to do work on the town forest. This is all something which is a committee choice. It's all something which happens through vote. And over past years, I've got a few pieces of paper here that I'll just leave with you guys as well. But just kind of like a timeline. So over the years, we've had different committee structures within the town forest committee as well as the town conservation committee, and those two have been joined. But as of the resigning of Carl Davis back about 3.5 or so years ago, the committee actually asked me to become chair. Was something that as town forester didn't really want to do, was worried about this sort of thing. We had 5 or 6 people on the committee at that time, and basically it got kicked right back that they had brought it to me and said, we would like you to still, as town forester, the most consistent member, to be the chair of the committee to keep things moving forward. So it was something that wasn't by design anything that happened. But again, I'm just going to really quickly go back through with this, and that we have done work as the town of Acton on different town forest properties. We have had monies from the town forest income come back through and then help on other conservation projects through time. Part of the Goat Hill purchase was by town match of different conservation monies that we had as revenues from the Hebo-Hibo woodlot that we cut back in 2002. So this isn't new ground that we worked through, but back in the day we had the selectmen at the time hired a forest management plan to be created to give recommendations for techniques to be used in revenues and habitats and things like that to be worked on the town forest property on the Hebo-Hibo. And again, that money came through the channels. We had other articles in front of the town at town meeting which took that and set it aside, or at least earmarked it for other conservation uses. So the big punchlines that I've had through this is that through the years, we have the comprehensive plan, which has essentially set that sustainable forestry is meant to be used on town properties and promoted on other private properties through town. It's something that is a goal the town was looking for within the creation of the town comprehensive plan. So that being the case, with Carl Davis being as chair of the committee at the time, we went through and the town hired a management plan and inventory on the piece on the town farm road. So that plan was created, and about at the time that the plan was submitted to the town, about in 2019, and this is all in your little paperwork there, Carl Davis had stepped down off of the committee due to some family illnesses, and I took over at the request of the committee. So since then, I have been re-elected as chair, in order to just, whether that's do a job that no one else wanted to do, I can't really say. But the gist of it is that, you know, as a mostly volunteer committee, we have different things that have had the town forester have certain duties. So upon working on these town properties, the town meeting created the town forester position and gave him a small stipend. So we have a person who is technically on the payroll to the town. We have someone who is dictated by town meeting to be sitting in this committee as a standing member to the committee. And then again, we have the stipend. So essentially the creation of this position was at the request of the town. And through historical management of town properties, it was something that was brought about at town meeting and approved by the town and by the committee. So again, as we move forward here now, we're into 2022, and we now have a commission plan for the town property off of the town farm road, and we are now stalling for whatever reason that this implementation of the plan, the adoption of the plan and the implementation of the plan are being stalled for presumed or perceived conflict of interest. So the gist of it is simply that as a forester working on behalf of the town writes my job description, the town dictates however it is that whatever I'm doing, however I am paid, if I am to be paid at all, and whatever job description comes out of this is something that from the committee working its way up to the town and working its way up to the town meeting is the process by which we've been working with this plan and land and trying to work toward other conservation values. So that's really where we are, but now again things have stalled for this conflict of interest scenario. So as forester working for the town, as town forester, and on this committee, I can certainly, understand the concern of all those out there in the public. However, my comment is simply to say that at no point in time through any of the voting, any of the committee work, any of the town meeting scenarios that set this position up for the town, was I voting, was I bringing about motions? This is, in my mind, an understanding of what the will of the town was to be. This is where the comprehensive plan wants the town to go. This is where the town meeting wants the town to go. And now I'm in this position simply saying, we don't even have a job that we're looking to execute yet, but we're having concerns. So if we can get ahead of these things, I'm all for it, because there certainly is no design to line my pockets by any town methods or anything like that. I have a private practice and it's working just fine. However, I do have a civic duty to the town. I want to work with this property, and I am also trying not to be immodest, the most qualified to work with this property on behalf of the town, and I have a 20-year track record to do so. So the gist of it is simply to say that if the selectmen in the town are writing my job description, I'm going to put it right back to you guys, is to say, please do find a way through this, that the town is comfortable with me doing this work, because the town is dictated by vote that I'm on the committee, and the plan was written by me, and therefore the execution would be most apt to be done by me. But if we can just find a way through the gist of whether there's a concern over, again, massive amounts of money being made or something like that, obviously anything that has to do with, for example, the road commissioner, or a school budget, or anything for maintenance of a school, all of these things go through a budget process. Nothing is happening from this committee that is not working its way up through the ladder and being approved at multiple levels. So if you look at where I sit, you know, if it is something that the committee and the town feels more comfortable about me not being chair, it would certainly be great if I could forego that, but we didn't have any volunteers for it. So again, here I am sitting at this podium here trying to explain to you how the position essentially that I have been put in is A, not really of my doing, but I'm trying to be as transparent as I possibly can, because in all reality, any conflict of interest, if you shine a light on it and are completely as transparent as you can be, the rest of it is a matter of perception. So that's really where I am at this point.
I think, Tom, if it's okay, you've got a couple of committee members that tonight they can just give you their opinions, and then you
Great,
can bring
that
it
would be
back
good.
to an upcoming meeting. Just hear it all tonight.
So by all means,
And-
take
and
a look.
thank you for that, and
Yeah.
thank you
Sure.
for your service
Okay.
on the committee, and the entire committee. We really appreciate the work that you're doing. So are there other committee members that would like to speak?
I
Please
guess
come
that brings
forward.
you guys him. Go for it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Andy Brazier. I've been on the Conservation Committee now for 3 years. Took over Carl Davis's position when he resigned. I've had several concerns with the overall direction of the committee for a while now. And unlike other advisory committees in Acton, we don't have an ordinance in place. We don't have any type of goal statement or job description. In nearly 3 years of serving on the committee, the only agenda item that has been consistent is the town forest and the plan for a timber harvest. Without an ordinance mission, we continually see members come and go, not knowing what the purpose of the committee is. I brought to light at the August meeting the conflict of interest clearly defined by town policy. The town forester, as Steve has said, sits as chairman of the committee. The forester was paid an amount of money to create a forest management plan. I have asked on more than one occasion how the forester gets compensated during the timber harvest, and the answer is a percentage of the overall take of the cut. Obviously, the conflict exists of promoting one's services as an elected or appointed town official where compensation occurs. The town policy is clear that this is not allowed, and the perception of such conflict must be disclosed. That at no point in this process has this taken place during the creation of the plan or any discussions at our meetings until the August meeting. The conflict of interest is clearly defined in Section 11 of the Town of Acton Conduct of Elected and Appointed Officials. As a committee, we have discussed at length that we are an advisory board to the Selectmen. If you watch the July meeting and review the meeting minutes, the Conservation Committee voted to adopt and implement the Forest Management Plan. The chairperson abstained from voting, which he must do if there is a perceived conflict of interest. Again, this conflict has never been disclosed, and also the committee has no operational authority to adopt and implement such a plan. It must go through the process. All supporting items and these concerns, I bring to your attention that there is a need for an ordinance to guide the committee. We do have a liaison from the Board of Selectmen who has been helpful in getting this discussion to the forefront, and for that I'm grateful. At our meetings, the idea of an ordinance has been discussed and noted that it would be beneficial not only to the standing members but for future members who have interest in serving on the Conservation Committee. I also do not want the invaluable work of past members to be underscored. The former committee worked in collaboration with the town and Three Rivers Land Trust to purchase Goat Hill and then to go on to build a trail system and parking area for all Acton residents to enjoy. The Mary Grant property is another great example of community efforts. I served on the Mary Grant Committee at its inception. The property was initially marked for timber harvest, and once folks realized the impact, it was quickly decided it would be left in its natural state. Trails were established and educational areas were marked. Since then, it has been enjoyed by many people. Both Goat Hill and the Mary Grant Preserve represent what the people of Acton enjoy. They both represent preservation of open space as referenced in the comprehensive plan. There are a number of areas outside of forestry alone that are cited in the comprehensive plan. Two other committees, the Warrant and Finance Committee and Road Committees, are both examples of committees operating in the town with an ordinance. The Conservation Committee works in the same capacity. We are advisory to the Board of Selectmen. In order for the Conservation Committee to move forward in a positive and transparent manner, I'd ask the Selectmen to create an ordinance as well as a job description for the town forester. Any formal actions of the committee should be placed on hold until the ordinance is in place and the conflict of interest per town policy is resolved in its entirety. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not just from the committee, but,
Coming.
I'm sorry.
Mark's here.
Oh, okay, very good.
Mark Hurd, I've been on the Forestry Committee for a good number of years. I don't really see any conflict that's, come about. Steve was hired to do a job which he did, which, and there's no, he hasn't been hired to implement, to do the cut or a cut, and it hasn't been decided by anyone if there isn't even going to be one. Just, I know I've heard a lot of words spoken, but it doesn't seem to mean a lot to me.
Okay.
I guess that's about all I got to say. If I have any questions or...
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Not just from the committee, anyone else want to speak on this?
We've got a couple people running late. I wouldn't mind closing if it's all right, but that's up to you guys.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock, so.
If you can keep it brief, because we have to get into a public session.
As far as any of the work within the committee goes, there has been nothing that has not been disclosed. The position within the committee is completely transparent. The discussion over the ordinance and the adoption and implementation has passed out of committee at a 3-0-1 with myself abstaining vote, as Andy has said. And the entire concept behind it is simply just to say that again, one is not able to put forth a proposal on how this work would be done until one knows what that job description might be. So for example, as town forester, the plan shows recommendations for the work. The committee is the one who decides what work is to be done and when. This is the proper path, and there is no way for someone to essentially put some sort of an estimate out there or a method, and categorically incorrectly was the concept behind saying that the proposal in front of the town was that this is a percentage style payment. That simply is not the case at all. There are many ways to work around services to the town that would be less influential, as to say if someone was worried about more revenue being made, more paid than being received by someone. It could be handled by the hour. It can be handled in a number of ways.
Okay.
But if we don't actually move forth with an actual job description, that position has not been able to be put forth to the committee and then to the selectmen. So
Very
that's
good.
really just where I am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the board will have to take this matter up at a future meeting, and so thank you for that information. We're now ready to move into our public hearing. Purpose of the public hearing was to provide an opportunity to hear from those, their view on the suggestion or the recommendation that the town move away from a town meeting form of assembly in order to approve the various warrants and other items that are put forth for approval into a more traditional ballot process. I think that's my summary of it, and I know there's a lot more behind this. And is there someone who is a spokesperson for trying to advance this? Is that you, David?
Well,
No, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
But no, I think what this meeting is really about is getting input from everybody. We're not looking for one spokesperson, we're looking for a broad.
What do people think?
Spokesperson is the wrong, I think it would be good so that we have sort of a level settling here to just make sure that we all understand what we're talking about. And so I've tried to do a summary here, but, I'm sure I've not done it justice.
We should
But is there
probably talk
someone
about-
who's given more thought to this that might just want to describe what it is that's being proposed so then people can react to that and can center our conversation?
Or maybe
I guess
talk
I'll-
about what started this. Because we have gotten,
I guess pretty much what started is there was some chatter. Then, of course, back at Candidates Night this year, it was a big thing. I mean, it was something that got brought up, and it was how are we going to get more participation at a town meeting? And we talked about it, and everybody come up with their ideas about possibly changing the meeting from June to March. And I came up with the idea, and this is something that I wasn't for. I think a couple of ex-selectmen and selectmen now, they can vouch for me that 2 years ago I was on the fence. I didn't think this was a great idea. I had my reasons, and over time, when it came up at that candidates night, it was like, how are we gonna get more people? Well, it was easy. Changing the date, I don't believe is gonna change anything. Especially by looking at the nearby towns, what they're getting for people.
I think we saw through COVID too, that, what do we usually have at a town meeting? Since I've been coming, I don't think there's ever been more than 60 people.
I think
Okay.
we've had instances where if you have something like, I use for example, Covewood Drive was probably the best example.
Right, if
of-
there's something big going on, we get more
Everybody
people.
showed up at that meeting. They voted on that one article and then they all left. And we ended with 20 people at the meeting. And,
So during COVID, obviously, we had to go through the ballot process, and we had over 500 people that voted that year on our, town budget.
564.
And that's one of the reasons, I guess, that I'm leaning more towards at least letting our town decide if that's something that they would want to do. Whereas before, I wouldn't have thought that either. The town meeting is an important part of our history, and, this is a very hard decision, but I think that the whole town should be able to decide which way we go, so.
And I think by having this little get-together tonight, get some opinions on, the town, everybody. There's obviously people I know that think that we ought to stay with the way we're rolling now. I've converted over to the new way of doing it on a ballot for the simple reason is, this year's town meeting, we started off with 42 people. I think we had 24 at the end of it. And that's kind of discouraging. Changing the date, I don't believe will change a thing. But when you see 564 voters voted on an actual budget for the town of Acton, I think the people are more aware of what's going on than people know because of our TV. People are seeing what the budget committees are doing, seeing what's actually going on. Where back in the day, we didn't have that. People went to town meeting because they didn't know anything that was going on. I think nowadays they're much more informed, and I think this is really the only way we're going to get more voter participation.
Thank you both. I'd like to open it up for public comment, but I also want to note that we've received a number of emails and other correspondence from individuals, and actually I believe there's some signatures that have been gathered on that, and I'd like to review that at the end, if that's all right. So, and I also want to acknowledge and thank everyone for coming out tonight. Incredibly important issue, and it's great to see so many people here. So I think we're just going to open it up. If I could ask you to kind of keep your, it could be a long night, but if you could try to keep your comments to 2 or 3 minutes, I would appreciate it. And so I'll open the floor. There's the podium. Please come forward, introduce yourself, and say what's on your mind.
Roland Waterhouse. I'm not in support of doing away with the town meeting. I understand reasons behind it. I've been at town meeting now for quite a few years. I know how many people were at this past June's town meeting, 43. I know how many people voted on the school budget, 90, and that was by secret ballot. We have 2,188 or 89 registered voters in this town, and unfortunately, the town has far too much apathy. If it does not affect you personally, a lot of people just don't want to be involved. And I find that to be very, very unfortunate. Because, you know, we're talking about, what is our total budget?
$9
million between the school and the municipality. That's a lot of money to spend. And it's very unfortunate that only a few people deem it necessary to participate in the government by voting. Will the town get a better turnout by secret ballot? You're probably right. There probably will be more people who actually come or who actually vote, whether it be absentee or in person. I personally think you need to change the town meeting back to either March or April. June is not a time favorable for the meeting just because kids are getting out of school, graduation's happening, prom's happening, people want to go on vacation. And you have a lot of people that, hey, I'm going to spend the time with my family rather than go sit in a gym and make a decision on town, budget, etc. So I won't support changing the town meeting, you know, doing away with the town meeting. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you, Roland.
You're welcome.
Hi, Susan Meehan. I do think changing the date might help. This year was Father's Day weekend, so it wasn't a great time. The other thing is we can get out, as David said, over 500 people to vote, but we can't even get 100 people to come to the town meeting. So I started thinking about it. What is different about an election versus a town meeting? With an election, people are out there saying, go vote on such and such a date and vote for my guy, that type of thing. And they put signs out all over the place. So to me, try it. Try to put signs out. I think the town can afford $300 for signs. Put those signs out all over the place. Start communicating, just like a person who's running for election. They're out there talking to people. Maybe the Board of Selectmen have to get out there and talk to everybody and try to encourage them. It is very frustrating that only 40 people are showing up for these meetings. But we have to maybe educate them as to what a town meeting form of government is. And maybe there are no more newspapers, so we have to rethink this. And maybe we have to look at it like we're running an election, because we can get people to the polls, but we can't get them to a town meeting. Let's try to look at it the way an election is. They have signs, they talk to people, and that's my opinion. And June is not a great month, especially when it's Father's Day weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Ed Walsh. I started probably this whole thing back about 5 years ago when I was on the board, talking about it. Dave was not in favor of it, not in any aspect. But glad to hear he's coming around to thinking about it. And I'm glad the board's, putting this forward. Couple things that make it different between open town meeting and a ballot. ease and convenience. You have a 12-hour window in which to come up and cast your ballot. You can also do it by absentee ballot. So it opens it up to everybody in town, making it really convenient for them to come and vote, whether it's absentee, whether it's coming into the podium, coming into the ballot boxes, booths, and casting your ballot. Granted, you've got to be a little more educated in what you're voting on. You need to listen to the Warrant and Finance Committee meetings. You need to watch them. You know, it's going to be more work for Warrant and Finance because they've got to push all this information out to everyone so they know what they're voting on. It'll be a little more work for the town clerk because she'll have to run a little more of an election to do with that. So it's more voting that way. But it's the ease and convenience of getting it out in front of the people and making it easy for the people to come in and vote. There's a lot of people in this town that want to be part of the town meeting, the open town meeting, but for many reasons, they can't. Whether it's they're working on the weekends, they're working Saturdays in that window. You know, when you work on Saturday, you're typically working morning to noon. That's town meeting. That's the crux of the town meeting right there. Granted, it does go later in the day sometimes, but you know, the meat and potatoes of it is the morning. For those that aren't working, they may have to stay home and watch the kids while the spouse works. So there's, you know, to come out on just to pick a Tuesday, that's typically when the elections are, to pick a Tuesday and give a 12-hour window in that day, just is a lot, it makes a lot more sense. Now, you had 564 people come out when we did the COVID vote. That to me proved right there, without a shadow of a doubt, that it works. Because if you take that number, you divide it by the last 10 years and the number of people that attended town meeting, you probably had more people on that one day than you did any one of the 10 years.
When you were selectmen, when we did COVID, didn't we send out a mail and everybody got the budget?
Yeah,
sent to 'em?
so they get it
We
ahead
did.
of time.
Oh,
Yeah,
we did,
Jen,
yes,
Jen-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you
and,
do have time to go through it.
Yep, you have
So-
time to go through it, think about it.
And at the end of the day, really, the way I look at it, we don't do that unless, you know, because we depend on town meeting for
Right.
that.
That's where you get your information.
So now by doing this, you know, what I feel that we're gonna need to do is, you know, we're gonna have a public hearing. It's not gonna be like, you know, it's just gonna blast through the finance committee. We're gonna throw this on the warrant, yee-haw, put it on a ballot, vote for it. You still gotta go through all the procedures, and at the end of the day, you know, you're gonna have that public hearing just like it's town meeting.
Exactly.
You're not placing your vote there, but if you have a discussion on what should be done, you know, there you go. But I'm sorry about cutting you off.
That's okay. Yeah, at that point, Warrant and Finance will hear from the public and help them to guide them into which way to go. And the same with you folks, you know, because ultimately, you know, it lands on you. The other part of it is the world has changed. Can you imagine sitting in a presidential election in a room and casting your vote one way or the other, and then going to the coffee shop the next day? Okay, just think about that one. To be able to cast your ballot behind a curtain is far better than sitting out there in the public now. Public has changed. The world has changed, okay? Some for the good, some for the worst. But if we could take that aspect out of it, you get more of an honest vote from the public in how they want to vote. So, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's good.
I'm in favor of keeping our current town meeting format. It is a tradition in New England. It's a true form of democracy. It's where everyone can hear opposing views respectfully in an open forum and really understand the issues that they're voting on if they were not informed previously. Even though these things are televised, if you look at the number of people that are watching those programs, at the bottom it tells you how many views they have had. It's nowhere near 500 and whatever. That was also during a state election. It is an opportunity for the public to speak with the selectmen or to voice their concerns where they're not cut off after 3 minutes. It's an opportunity where the citizens are on equal par with the selectmen. The town moderator is moderating that town meeting. I would much rather have 50, 40, 30 people who really care about the issues and what's going on, enough to give up their day to go and participate in our democracy, than have these issues decided by 500 people who may not be informed on what they're voting on at all.
Thank you, Nancy. Someone else? Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening, I'm Richard Nass. I live on the Milton Mills Road. I am not in favor of switching the town meeting to a different method. I really think we made a big mistake when we left March. We need to go back to that. There's lots of difficulties with that, and I've talked to Jennifer about how to get back there, and it's a mess. But if you want to get more people at that town meeting, you need to get back to March or April, I believe. Also, our surrounding towns, the ones that are most like Acton, with the exception of Chapley, are not switching. Alfred, Newfield, Limerick, still doing it. Now, here's a couple of good ideas. Limerick especially does some things by referendum, because there is a vote. I mean, you're voting. So we cannot do 78 articles anymore. That's part of what turns people off. You get over 40 articles, and people are just numb after a while. Certainly the moderator is numb. It doesn't work. So 40, 50 articles at the most. If you've got some, maybe even some of the committee stuff, do it by referendum on the Tuesday before. Take the pressure off of town meeting. But our surrounding towns are still managing to do it fine. There is some discussion. I also want to talk about the public hearing part of it. So Lebanon has switched years ago to referendum voting. So they have a public hearing, big public hearing. Sometimes it's well attended. This year, 15 people showed up. So if you think that the public hearing part of this thing is going to bring people out to have a public discussion about the stuff, not necessarily. So it depends, and there's a lot of reasons for that over there, but it doesn't necessarily work. I'll stop there. Thank you.
I got a question for you, Richard.
Sure.
You mentioned the moving to March.
Yeah.
Why do you think March is going to bring more people than June?
It's more traditional. People expect that. It's a time when they aren't traveling, probably the kids are still in school. All of those things that used to get people out was a better time, whether March, April. And the other part of this thing is our town report is useless. You know, we've spent a lot of money preparing this town report, but it's so old that it's not of use to anybody.
We will fix that this year.
Thank you. But so I think that whether it's March or April, it needs to be when school is in session, when people are here, when they're not outdoors, when they're not worried about Father's Day or graduations or all that stuff. June is a horrible month to have a town meeting, I think. So, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else would like to speak?
Joyce Bakshi, West Shore Drive. As before me, I'm also in favor of keeping our traditional town meeting. There are so many things that are affected by changing that haven't even been up. Committees that are elected from the floor at town meeting would no longer be elected that way. Road Committee, Warrant and Finance. These people who do that would have to take out nomination papers. They would have to, collect their signatures and go out and get their votes. And so we'd have, a whole section of voting that would have to take place by secret ballot. The other thing is, at town meeting the way it is, it's the only time we can actually change anything. By secret ballot, you can't change anything. At public discussion, things can be changed. And I think that's such a gift of our democracy that we the people, I mean, let's sound a little too much, but we actually have a say and we can change to something. So I am absolutely in favor of sticking to, and I will say I'm very biased. I'm a transplant like a lot of other people, been here 23 years, but for 30 years before that, I was in a town of 30,000 people that had town meeting, and our town meeting went 4 to 5 evenings in a row. And it was such a tradition, and people would just, because they could absolutely practice their patriotism and their democracy, loved it. So I'm really in favor of town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
Dennis Long. I'm definitely not in favor of doing away with our traditional town meeting. There is no data that anybody has looked at really that say that it would change the amount of people that vote, because there's secret ballot stuff. There's always been an election tied with it, which draws a lot of voters. This year was 500, approximately 500 for the election. And there are so many things that we would lose by doing away with this. One example would be, like Joyce just spoke about, the people would have to take out their papers to run for office. There's a reason why years ago the planning board used to run for office when it was first started, and the reason why they changed from doing that was because they couldn't get anybody to run, and then the selectmen started appointing them. The nice thing about the town meeting, electing these committees, they usually hash it out until they're full at town meeting anyway. And as you know, with the appointed committees in town, it's a constant struggle, and some of them you just can't get them full, and it's been forever. And so there's a lot of things in the debate on what you want to do. I mean, there's things that changed at town meeting at times when people don't agree with it. But it's been very rare, historically, that something would be changed because of a public hearing. And to talk a little bit about, well, like Dick was talking about, people not attending public hearings, the school public hearing this year, there was 0 citizen participation. There was not one person that didn't have something to do either on the Warrant Finance Committee or the school committee or employees. They did a wonderful job with their presentation, but not one citizen went to that. And that was spending, approximately $5 million. I think trying, because we have no reason to say it won't work, whether we think it will or we think it won't. I think before we did away with the process that we've been using, I think moving it back earlier in the year is worth a chance. And if nobody doesn't change, then we relook at it another year. But you've had 2 people that I've seen anyway come to a selectmen's meeting and approach the selectmen about changing this. And as you can see, there was also obviously 42 people or 43, whatever was at town meeting, that was in favor of the town meeting. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been there. So I think that I respectfully ask the selectmen to do what the majority of the people that are speaking would like for you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Anyone else care to speak?
Yeah, I'm keeping a tally for you.
Yeah, we're keeping.
Andy Brazier. Obviously, there's some good, valid points on each side of this debate. Is this something that is going to be decided by the people? Will this ultimately go to the voters to decide?
You would have to.
That's, yeah.
And the public hearings will just be similar to this format where we all have a chance to voice our opinions and so I guess what I'm asking is
It's my
ultimately.
understanding, I'll review the process. The selectmen will take up this question as to whether or not they want to advance a warrant or an article or a change.
What we would
of-
do is, we'd end up making a motion whether or not we want to put it forward to November.
Yeah.
Vote on it in November, during the election in November. Let the town decide whether or not this is what we want to do or not.
The board can only move the question forward. They can't change the form of
Not be
government.
decided by the
Right,
selectmen.
right.
No.
They're
Okay,
just deciding whether or not to put it on a ballot.
all
To
right.
ask you if you want to change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I see, was it Ray?
He's right here.
Oh, okay, thank you. The hat,
Snuck
that's
around.
what it was. I didn't,
Ray Lopez, Buzzell Drive. There was a few meetings back, I believe it was discussed at a selectmen's meeting, the possibility of emails coming from the public to the different boards as far as when the process was taking place, the budget process. And I haven't heard anything about that anymore, and I'm wondering where or if anything was done with that, any other thoughts were with that. Because it seems to me that even though if we have a few, 100 or so people that watch APAT, that's more than the 20 or 30 people that stay in the vote. And if people are able to ask questions of these committees during that process.
are you talking about interactively?
Correct. Well,
Like
whenever the
email.
emails
As
would
the
come
meeting
in,
is
that will be
occurring,
passed on.
A meeting, a question
Correct.
is sent in or a statement, and it's read by a moderator or someone?
Correct.
I see. Yeah.
And that way, those questions or concerns can be addressed. And I'm hoping that would be able to happen.
That's probably a technology that we don't have. I'm sure it's available, but
Well, I think what he's saying, if I'm understanding, you're saying that you're asking if people can just send in a question for the Warrant and Finance and email, and we'd send it to the committee?
Correct.
Yeah, so we certainly would do that now. If
Oh, I
anything
thought-
comes in for any committee, we send it to that chair. So if
Okay.
you're not seeing it
But
as a
we
member,
need
that
to-
I
means
thought you were
let
asking
people know.
during the committee.
No, well, as people watch it, then they would have questions, they would
Yeah,
send an
yeah.
email into the town, that would be forwarded to whatever committee.
And we do.
And-
We
okay.
get anything that pertains to a committee, it
Okay.
goes to them.
Maybe we need to let the
So
audience.
from that aspect of it. Also, it seems, history shows that March, it looks like people are leaning more to March or April on a meeting. My question on that aspect is, so what does that do to the process? Does that push the auditors back so that the committees still have enough time to run that? Because now you're looking at a shorter amount of time period, or now is it going to
I
be
think
more
it's
rushed?
I think it's primarily a condensed or revised budget development schedule. We'd have to start developing the budget earlier so that we would have a budget to present in March.
Okay, that was,
A majority of the towns that vote in March are calendar years, and I haven't heard any discussion about changing us from calendar to fiscal, but a majority of the towns in York County that vote in March are calendar years. That means, they run on a calendar year. Acton runs on a fiscal. Most of your fiscal towns vote in June. So it's, when you see March or June, you need to find out what the town runs by, a fiscal or a calendar year. That's the
Yeah,
difference.
I think that's an aspect of it, but as someone who's managed budgets for years, all you got to do is set the schedule.
Yeah,
You
it
create
certainly
a
could be
calendar,
done.
you set it. There's nothing that says you can't have your budget done regardless of your fiscal. If you got a June fiscal year, you can have your budget done by March. You just start earlier and you get it done. So I don't think that's an
Well,
impediment.
no, I'm not saying it has to be the reason. I'm just, the examples that they're giving are usually towns on calendar, but it can definitely be done.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
being that
Do
the
it
question
any
is
month.
going to be asked of the general public in the November election of how or when they want this to continue either in town meetings or change it to a private vote. I guess my question would be, is that going to be part of the question that is on the ballot? Of when do you think? I mean, I understand fiscal versus
Well,
year.
that's what they're here to decide tonight, or whenever down the road. They don't know if
So
they're
I'm
on
just,
ballot.
I'm just trying to make sure that the entire question gets put out to the public so that they can have the opinions.
It's been suggested this would be brought to a vote at the November election.
Correct.
And the question
And my
would be-
question is,
Going to be brought forward.
right, what is the question going to consist of? Is going to be, does the townspeople want it to continue to be in June, or do they want it to be in March or April? I'm seeing a lot of the public here that has raised that.
What we're discussing right now is whether we're going to go forward to see if the townspeople want to keep the town meeting, or if they would rather do it by ballot. Once we figured that out, then we would have to answer your question, I guess.
So at the end of the day, if we put it out in November, say, ballot or town meeting, and the town decides, okay, we want to stay with town meeting, then I think
We
that
could
would be the
revisit.
point where we would change it, we would put it out to change the date at that point. If they say ballot, then we don't rule that route, we go ballot.
I'd like to make some comments, but I would prefer to make sure that we get all the public comments made. Ray, did you have anything else?
No, I just wanted to bring out those points.
But I purposely held off on mine, so anyone else?
Nancy Ruma. I do know that with towns that have a ballot vote on their budget, they do have multiple public hearings prior to that. So I think that you have to think pretty deeply as to how you're going to change this schedule if you sincerely want to do this. It is not my desire that you do it, but there are a lot of things to be considered. I also would like, if I didn't mention it before, I would very much like to try a spring town meeting versus June.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
Will Langley. So if we move to like, let's say March, what would that do for like the elections for like, you know, like in town, like road commissioner?
You'd still have to have a June election.
Oh, so it'd be in June?
That election would be yes.
Oh, okay.
I beg to differ. I mean, the other towns do the same thing. They have their elections in March.
Great question, Will. I think we're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, these are,
I just threw it
No,
out.
it's a great question.
No, it is.
Yeah, I don't think we know. I suspect there's some options around that. Anyone else care to speak? Thank you for all those comments. You know, this is a big deal, I think. Once it's gone forever. And I don't think we'll ever return to a town meeting form of government. Perhaps you could, but I think once it's gone, it's gone.
Read the emails off, Tom.
I was going to make my comments, and then we're going to read the emails, okay? I'm concerned that this may be rushed, especially given that it's, I think, an important issue. While not in Acton, I've attended town meetings for years, and always felt they were important. I think it was an opportunity to express your view to town officials, be it the selectmen, be it committee members. This is one of the few opportunities we have, I think, to hear from a fairly, a larger segment of the population about what's on their mind. I personally appreciate that, especially as a new selectman, always wondering, well, what are people really thinking? What is on their mind? How would they think about this? I'm concerned about losing the ability of townspeople, residents, to be able to change a budget once it's on a ballot. It's an up and down vote. And there's no opportunity to sort of propose an amendment on the floor and make a change. I personally would love to see the town budget, the school budget, all voted on at a similar time. I think it's important for residents to have an opportunity to see the total ball of wax, rather than voting on a school budget and then having to wait 3 months to vote on a town budget. I think there's been some talk about apathy. And what I've observed is everything ebbs and flows with time. And it's a sort of a sad state of affairs about society today, but I don't know, I tend to be an optimist. And I think there's a real possibility that maybe some of that apathy will be changed in the future. I think if there's a change in the tax rate, my guess is you'll get more people out. The tax rate has been flat, and a lot of people come out to vote when it hits the pocketbook. And at some point, taxes are going to begin to rise. With inflation being what it is right now, we didn't experience this year. We're in a very good position financially. I think the town has done a wonderful job managing its finances. But I think if anyone sort of stays current with what the views are about where inflation is going to go, I suspect at some time over the next 3-5 years, that's going to begin to impact the town budgets. Salaries are going to be increasing in order to help people, our employees, keep pace with inflation, and that's going to make its way into the tax rate. And I think the more opportunity people have to understand all of that and to shape that budget, I think the better off we are. So my view is I'm not for this change right now. I would love to see it move back to the spring. I'd love to try as many things as we can to increase the participation and the process. And if we try those things and it doesn't work, and if people feel, well, the only thing that we can do is eliminate the town meeting and move to a straight ballot, then so be it. But I'd like to think that there are some things that can be done to strengthen the town meeting. I also would like, I think as Richard had mentioned, we have far too many items to deal with at town meeting. And I'm not quite sure how to do this, but somehow we got to prioritize. These are the things that just ought to go on a ballot. And these are the things that are really critical that we think citizens will want to hear about and have an opportunity to weigh in and vote on, and those can be taken up in town meeting. I don't know if that's possible. I'm not an expert on this, but I think we got to be a little more selective to try to keep the time required for town meeting to the bare essential. So those are my comments and my thoughts. Thank you for listening. Jennifer, do you have some emails and input that's come from the public?
The first one comes from Arnold Murray. Greetings, board. I wish to be recorded as opposed to changing the form of government on town articles from the current and long-standing town meeting voting process at this time. I believe that the current process provides Acton voters the opportunity to hear compelling reasons both for and against town articles, and the people of Acton can vote accordingly with educated information, and changing that process shouldn't be rushed. In changing the voting method, the people would give up the right to amend the articles based on town meeting discussion. The voters at the town meeting can hear all the conversation, ask questions to make a knowledgeable vote. Referendum ballot is up or down. I understand that it has been stated that it could be done at a public hearing. The Acton Planning Board hearing for the 5 zoning changes at town meeting had 11 attendees. Lebanon's town hearing on May 14th for their town meeting gathered about 15 for about 40 articles and 40 minutes of debate. This is the reason why more time for research to ascertain with data that how people will be informed. Lebanon has 5,238 registered voters per their 2021 town report. Furthermore, I believe that the people of Acton should be offered a survey committee report as to what form of government they would like to see in guiding the future of Acton. They should have a choice of a town charter, town manager, and a 5-person select board. I would like to think, whereas the warrant articles are decided by the select board and can't be amended, that a 5-person board would offer a 40% more diversity of thought in drafting the articles. I do not see any reasonable concern or problem in delaying the proposed voting method change until we have examined all the options before we change the voting process. We need to decide how we are going to educate the voter to have a more informed vote. Putting more people in election booths does not equate to a more knowledgeable voter. At present, the people at town meeting care enough to attend and are educated and informed about the votes they cast. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Feel free to contact me with any questions.
It's the second individual that's commented about whether or not the way people vote, whether or not they're informed enough to vote. It's kind of interesting. Because I feel that more people out there are informed, because people like myself and other people in town, we get out and talk, we let people know what the budgets are, and this and that, and they all get the town books too. They all know what's going on, so.
All right, what else you got?
Next is Bernard Broder. Dear Jennifer, as I've already addressed the select board, requesting that it put forth a warrant article asking citizens wish to transition from the annual town meeting to a select board. I do not plan to address the board again this evening. However, I wish my vote to be counted amongst requesting the following information. 1, increased voter turnout and input, given that voters can cast ballots from 8 to 8 on a weekday rather than limited hours on a weekend morning. Also, voters can vote on all issues regardless of what time they vote. Currently, if you're not present at the time of issue goes to vote, you're not able to vote on that particular issue if you arrive later in the morning. Number 2, voters will be able to vote by absentee vote. This allows for the elderly and infirm to vote in particular, but anyone can vote this way, and it's especially important in the summer rolls. There have been special town meetings held during COVID in which individuals infected and their caregivers have been unable to participate. Absentee voting remedies this. Number 3, participating by written ballot affords voters the privacy they deserve in casting their votes. Neighbors aren't entitled to know how you vote. Public voting can negatively impact relations of all kinds. We've all seen this happen. It's most unfortunate. Number 4, voters can cast their votes on all issues within minutes by written ballot. The town meeting format requires them to be present for hours if they wish to vote on all issues and listen to presentations and opinions, even if they've made their decisions and simply wish to cast their ballot. There are ample opportunities prior to voting to obtain information. I hope that if this change occurs, that the town will host an annual gathering so Acton remains the connected and strong community that it is. This would also provide a forum to recognize our valuable employees and citizens. C.J. Gardner. Hello, select board members and Acton neighbors. I'm in favor of permanently changing the town meeting to a ballot at the polls. As a family with school-aged children and no other family nearby, we represent a growing number of families who are moving to Acton. The town of Acton should aspire to have many people as possible vote. This cannot be accomplished if it's one half of the parents have to stay home to watch children, while the other half spends 3 or 4 hours, if not more, at a town meeting. If the town meeting was permanently changed to a ballot at the polls, it gives everyone the opportunity to have their vote counted on issues that matter, generally in under 15 minutes. We would imagine that, like ours, most kids couldn't sit still and be quiet for 3 hours listening to adults talk, but are able to wait a few minutes while mom or dad votes behind the curtain. But if they can't, it's easy for one parent to run to the town hall, a few minutes later, the other one. I understand that town meeting is the way it's always been done, but we urge you to think about the people you see and don't see at town meetings. You probably don't see many parents of young children. Moving to a permanent ballot will allow most of the people to participate in our local government. It's actually CJ and Matthew Gardner. Leslie Berlin, I am opposed to changing our form of government at the present time. I feel this is being rushed and all the important information will be difficult to assess in this short time frame. Voting records are extremely important and comes with the responsibility of being an informed voter. The voters who attend town meeting are engaged, ask questions, and are open to discussions. My question to the selectmen is, how will citizens access information about each article? The town administrator posts the warrants on the bulletin board, the town administrator posts the information on the bulletin board. However, no information is posted, nor do citizens get the information from the bulletin board. If you look at APAT records, the average view shows less than 100. The cable channel is out of date. The 2 signs on Route 109 are underutilized and blank most of the time. We have no widely circulated newspaper, and most of the used Facebook pages are censored. My recommendation is to move town meeting to April or March. Hope Denenkamp. I can't be at tonight's meeting. Let's see, Dudley has a training class. However, I would like to voice my opinion in favor of the ballot voting instead of in-person annual town meeting. John Denenkamp. Won't be able to make the meeting tonight, but want the selectmen to know that I am in favor of using ballots for town meeting. The next of them, I'm just going to read through the names. They're essentially, they all say the same thing. To the Board of Selectmen, I will not be able to attend the meeting on the 17th. From town meeting to secret ballot, I support moving town meeting to a secret ballot. Will Cody, Cassandra Dobson, Rob Dobson, Margarita Borgel, Terry Borgel, Judith Qua, Elizabeth and Gary Brenton, George Hubbard Sr., Mary Heather Cookson, Andrew Brazier, Bridget Whitman, Christopher Whitman, Matthew Gardner, Adam Small, Eric Brazier, Lois Michaud, Rebecca Lewis, Roger Lewis, Jack Hurd, Celeste Lewis, Edward Donahue, Rick Smith, James Driscoll, Jade Driscoll, D. Richard, Randy Richard, Elise Miller, Kelly Brazier, Christina Gardner, Mark Drapo, Jackie Morrow, Dan Dixie, Edward Hogue, Liana Hogue, and then I have 3 additional ones that I am sorry to say I cannot make out the signatures. By count, I have 40 that supported it and 8 that did not.
Thank you. Okay.
That included the people that spoke.
Sure, thank you. I think we're ready to close this unless anyone feels like they absolutely have something they have to say. Great, then let's close this session and we'll go back in to our, and finish up our selectmen meeting. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
So we left off, District 1
Yeah.
is here to speak.
Yes. Will?
I was asked to come tonight, give an update about West Shore Drive. So I called the engineer last Friday, and they, sketch designer was on vacation. He was coming back this week. When they come back, they're gonna like peer review and fix a couple numbers. And she actually called me today, so I'm gonna call her back tomorrow, and hopefully by the end of this week, I'm gonna have them. So they were just having to meet one last time, and they want to adjust some numbers, and should be in pretty good shape. So.
How are they doing their cost estimates? Are they reaching out to firms to provide an estimate, or are they doing it themselves?
I believe they do it themselves. I mean, they do reach out to sources, and
Yeah.
you can get pricing, like,
Yeah.
Like the box culvert. I'm sure they have a company they deal with, they'll call for pricing, this and that, so.
Very good.
They're trying to nail down like a pretty good number, because, I mean, it kind of changes every day right now, so.
Sure, yeah.
They're trying to give us the best solid number they can.
Very good, Will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other committee updates? Okay. Liaison updates. Had a chance to meet with the chair of the Warrant and Finance Committee to talk about their schedule and plans for the coming year. I met the other day with the superintendent of the transfer station to talk about a couple of issues that were going on there. No actions with the fire department, other than, of course, trying to, with Jennifer, get this committee organized. And the capital improvement committee had an opportunity to meet with Joyce and go over some of her thoughts and recommendations for the coming year. Kim?
Let's see here. Rec committee, we haven't talked in the last week or so. I did meet with APAT today, and that was a good meeting. We went over a few different things, and we talked about technical glitches or not having backup. We've had a few different people either email or call in with issues of not getting stuff up in the three days time. So I talked with Mike about that today, and I think we kind of got that figured out. He's got help and stuff. And cemetery committee, there's, I'm not sure, we're still kind of,
So they had asked for a meeting on September 1st, but the planning board has a meeting, so I'm still waiting for confirmation of what they're going to do.
all right. And the same thing with the school. I'll wait till they have their first meeting in September. And then I'll know a little bit more there. But, no, I had a good meeting with Mike, and thank you for coming in today. And so that's it.
Okay, I guess that's me. Road committee, I did meet up with Will last week there. There was a small issue down there on West Shore Drive. He gave me a call. I came up and we figured out the situation with the homeowner. I think all is well. Will, everything good down there with the homeowner? Good?
Everything's going fine.
Good. And so we haven't seen Adam at all, so I'm sure we'll catch up next week. And we haven't any road committee meetings, so there wasn't anything last week or anything, so nothing there. Code enforcement, land use, I've been in contact with Jason there about our contract with North Star, and our land use secretary, been dealing with that. Mary Grant Committee, nothing there. And Forest Conservation, I gave my update last week.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. Okay, any questions, comments there? Yes.
Jane, you are the fire department liaison. Is there any word on our fire truck? You know, we're at 2 years and 2 months.
I believe whatever was coming from Europe has arrived. I think it's a chassis, and they've got all the, if I got this right, they got all the equipment, it's being loaded on it, it's being assembled. I haven't got a delivery date, but I believe...
Just curious, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand with COVID, you know,
That's what it was.
that slowed everything down and,
Yeah.
you know, kind of stopped everything, but, you know, we approved this over 2 years ago. And
Okay.
I would hope that, you know, before another year passed, the town is going to see an actual truck.
Well, the price has been frozen. It's
I
been
understand
committed,
that.
So we're not dealing with inflation on it.
I understand
We've
that.
not dispersed any of our cash for it, as I understand it.
We paid half and
Yeah,
the other
but that
half is
happened, yeah.
remaining, and I understand that.
You know,
as well.
like everybody else, you can't get food you want in the grocery store, supply
That's
chain
true.
issues. And
That's true.
you know, it's, I don't think there's anything that could have been done by the fire department or by others in town. It's just unfortunate, sign of the times.
Just looking for an update, that's all.
Yeah, you got one.
Fire chief's been giving us some updates. And
Yeah, is it what I...
It's parts.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you-
they were
you said it
looking for some
perfectly.
parts. I mean, I called Mac the other day, because we were buying a Mac, right?
Yeah.
And I called Mac the other day looking for drums, common drums. These drums are out months. You know, we're gonna look all over the
it's
country
really
for these
sad.
spots, so, I guess we get it when they can give it to us,
Yeah.
but we really have no other choices.
I understand that. And hopefully, we're not going to go out and expend a bunch of money on another truck anytime soon.
I don't think anyone's suggesting that. Any other comments?
This is why we get rid of town meeting. Stupid crap like that.
Come on, David. Any other comment? Okay, thank you. On to old business. Code Enforcement Office policy, and I think it's policy and form.
Well, the form we dealt with last week, we're
Okay,
done with.
all right,
yeah.
so it's just the policy.
Yes.
Yeah, we
So
got
this-
one down, one to go.
We are ready to go. This is
All
it.
right.
So any citizen inquiry complaint must be signed by the inquirer. Any anonymous inquiry or complaint will not be accepted or reviewed by the Code Enforcement Office. All complaints are public record per Maine's Freedom of Information Act. Upon request, copies of this form and any attachments will be distributed to any interested person. There are multiple ways that a citizen can submit an inquiry to the Code Office. Correspondence can be received by written letter, email, or preferably through the Citizen's Inquiry Complaint Form, which will go directly to the Code Enforcement Officer review. The CEO will acknowledge receipt of the inquiry/complaint within 5 working days. The town has the right to reject complaints deemed to be frivolous. That's with your last changes. Should be ready to sign.
Can we have a motion?
Make a motion that we sign the Town of Acton, Maine Citizen Inquiry Complaint Policy.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Motion carries. Great. Roofing bid.
Last week, we opened the roofing bids, sat down with the code enforcement officer and went through them line by line, and he writes you the following memo. Per your request, I have reviewed both roof bids submitted to the town of Acton. It is my opinion that the material used in both bids are comparable enough to be considered equal. Both are using 26-gauge color finish roofing. Panels are 36 inches wide and fastened 12 inches on the center. Additionally, both companies are using the existing insulation. Further review indicates that both companies have material warranties of 40 years. The only difference I have been able to locate, other than the price, is the contractor workmanship warranty, 20 years versus 10 years. It is my recommendation, based on the documents I have reviewed, that you accept the proposal of the low bidder. If the select board is concerned with the contractor warranty, possibly you can reach out to the 10-year company and ask them how much it would cost additionally to increase to 20 years. But even with that possible increase, I still feel the low bidder will remain the same. Again, these are just my opinions I'm providing at your request. So you had Precision Roofing at $14,000, and you had Sean Siding at $32,900.
What was that number again, 32?
32.9.
Okay, wow.
And that was,
Okay.
Jason says they're pretty much apple for apple.
Thank Jason for providing that summary. It's very helpful
Yes.
to have that.
When did the decision say that they can start on that?
I think they were both relatively quick. I thought theirs was fall.
like September? Maybe not.
It says, please sign a review within a third down. Once we receive a call to schedule. I feel like their form was in here. I'm not seeing it right off, David, but let me dig. Oh, here we go. My bad. Warranty, labor warranty, start date Tuesday, October 11th, completion date October 12th.
That's.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
That's not a huge roof.
Is there a motion? Any other discussion on this? And I should, any discussion by the board on this?
I think we really have one choice here to make.
Any comment from the public? Okay, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept Precision Roofing's bid at $14,000.
I'll second that.
It would be great if we could reach out to them. They're the ones that offered a 10-year
Correct.
workmanship warranty. Assuming this passes tonight, then obviously we're going to extend that bid, but I think we should ask the question.
Sure.
See if they can extend that. All those in favor? Motion passes. Okay. North Star Agreement. Anything to report on that?
So last week, you received it as a first reading. The only change that I presented to you was the principal planner went up $10. The regular planner was up $5. The associate planner stayed the same. Codes has been using this one, has one project pending with them that they're paying at escrow, and he's requesting that you extend it.
Okay.
And I think David met with him as well.
Yeah, I met with Jason about it, and there's a project that he's working on right now with North Star. He wants to make sure they can continue with that project. I mean, the contractors that are coming in, using these, are paying for it anyways, but you just want to make sure we have them on the side there, and they're also using Southern Maine Regional or whatever it is at the same time, so just keeps our options open.
Very good. Have a motion?
Do we need to make a motion? Just make a motion that we accept the contract from North Star Planning LLC.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay. I'm sorry, I should have asked for public comment, but I assume there wasn't any there. This is, did I not sign the right form?
No, that's the
That was
North
something
Star.
else? Okay, hold on.
Do you want us all to sign that, or the North Star?
At least two of you.
Okay, two of us.
Jennifer, you'll fill in the date and so on that?
Yes, I'm her
Thank
speaking,
you.
yes.
Okay, I think that moves us to new business.
Yep.
The water bids, I understand we have, how many?
Two.
Two.
So essentially what we did was we sent a letter out to 9 places that basically said, to whom it may concern, Town of Acton has continuously failed water tests inside our municipal facility located at. With that being said, we're asking to reach out to you, a professional in the field, to ask your opinion on a resolution. For your convenience, we've included the last water test we received and ask you to submit a proposal to us which would resolve this matter in your opinion. So it wasn't a bid per se. We said, here's our results, tell us what you do. We did get two. One is from McMahon's Water Service for $15,600. The other one is from Fontis Water Treatment Services in the amount of $14,000. They are extremely detailed, line by line, so this is officially your opening. I'll scan, make copies, let you look at them. We'll go over them with codes, but you can't even really compare their language now until we have some time to go through it, because I don't even know if they're installing the same type of treatments. One of them says, install an air unit for iron followed by a solution feed to inject anti-scalient before a whole house reverse osmosis. The other one says, install a water treatment system to correct water per email. And then a lot of technical terms underneath.
I believe you had reached out to somebody who was knowledgeable about this in the area that sort of assisted us with this?
Yes.
Southern Maine Pump?
Yes, I did.
Is this something you could,
I can call them.
indulge upon them to, take a look at them and give us their recommendations? This is beyond my
Nice to have a
capability.
third party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not been on it.
Yeah,
Right, no, I got it.
yeah, they're just, yeah, that would be great, thank you. So we'll bring that back hopefully for the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, mass gathering permit.
All right, so this mass gathering permit comes to you from the Widow's Son Masonic Riding Association. This is something that they've done a few years. They didn't do it last year because of COVID, but they have done it before at the Acton Fairgrounds. We haven't had any problems with them. They've spoken to Sheriff's Department, as I understand it, and the Fire Department. There are no concerns. They're not even sure they're going to hit 250 people. It's by invite only. They're doing this just to be sure.
It's a motorcycle group, right?
It's a Masonic Riding Association. I don't want to.
So,
It's their annual meeting, as I understand it, worldwide?
Yeah, I think.
I spoke to them today.
Yeah.
I believe it's their worldwide annual meeting. Most of the people are probably going to be from Maine, but there'll be people coming from all over the country.
And they're there for 4 days. 4 days.
4 days there. He didn't expect any more than 200 people at a time. They're not planning to need, or as we understand it, they're going to draw on paramedic services
Within, yeah.
as needed from that service. So they're not planning to have anyone stationed there permanently or during their open hours. It seemed like a pretty straightforward process. I think as we've talked about, we need to look at this
Right.
mass gathering permit more generally and make sure that we understand what it is we're asking of people for this and try to be more consistent in terms of setting criteria and.
Yeah, we should have like an A, B, and C, this
Check
classification.
the box and sort of take some of the discretion out of this, but I think this was going to be a well-run organization. So,
Should be fine.
can we have a motion to approve, or do you want to look at this, or?
Masonic, huh? Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve the mass gathering permit for Masonic riding. Where's the date?
September 1st through the 4th.
Yeah, there it is, September 1st through September 4th.
I'll second that.
Any comment? All in favor? Okay, motion carries. I'd be pleased to hear that. Road assessment. I had an opportunity to sit with Jennifer and our treasurer to review sort of the tax calculations and how those are done. And as Jennifer pointed out, I think there are some questions about what our undesignated fund balances are and how those might be available and brought into use of taxes or not. We also are dealing with a reval that's going to take place and will be effective for the next fiscal year. I think, well, there's a fair amount of reserves, especially when you look at what the school has and what general government has. There's a fair amount of money in reserves. And I think we should develop a plan for how to use those reserves. Some of those may be used for tax relief. I think that's certainly an appropriate thing to consider. I'd also like to better understand what our needs are for roads in town, and in particular, whether or not we have our roads at a relatively consistent state of repair throughout the town. That may be true, that may not be true. What I would like to suggest, and I apologize to my fellow selectmen, I've not had a chance to talk to you about this because, generally we don't talk about these things outside of the meeting, but I would like to have an appropriate engineering firm come in and just have an independent assessment on the state of our roads in town and understand, what the needs are. Are they in good shape? Do we have disparity between certain districts in terms of the state of repair or not? And from that, develop a better sense of what kind of need we may have in order to properly maintain our roads in a consistent way throughout the town. There's always going to be some variation, but I would like to be more comfortable that in fact there is some parity within town around how all these roads are being maintained. And I think having an independent assessment like that would be helpful to the town, and quite frankly, I think would be helpful to the road agents as well. So, and I think could help us think about these reserves. What are they there for? What do we need going forward? How much might be available beyond what we might need for roads? And then we could think about how to begin to apply those reserves in our calculation of tax rates over some period of time. Short, long, I don't know. But I think that's the missing piece of information from my perspective that I think we need to have a better handle on. Thoughts?
You want to hear mine?
That's why yes.
And just for clarity, I just want to add to the board. So, Tom, we decided to add this to the agenda about 10 minutes to 6, right? I just want to, because they do call in to ask me what's on the agenda. So I just want David and Kim
in all
to hear
fairness, these are not things we can talk about outside these meetings.
I just like to remind the other ones.
I'm trying to get it, I know that kind of puts you on the spot, but and if you want to table it for a future meeting, we can certainly do that.
No,
I'd like to think a little bit about it.
Did you talk to the road commissioners at all?
No, I haven't. I haven't. No,
So-
this is just
Bringing it up.
Tom's idea.
Yeah, no, and I understand, engineer and all that's great, but the issue I have with doing that is without the two road commissioners, whether or not they have their plan, they should have a plan. There should be some sort of plan, correct, guys? Some sort of 5-year plan. By bringing in, I work with engineers on road projects and stuff, and we like to take the money that we actually put forward and actually do road work. And I find engineers turn a project into a complete nightmare and make them very costly. There are certain projects I do believe engineers should be involved in. The road assessment, I think would end up taking away the authority of the road commissioner, and I would even at that point the road committee. But I believe if the road commissioner needs the assistance of a engineer, then that's what they do. But we elect them to make those decisions.
I think that there are some projects that definitely would warrant engineer on the roads. Maybe not all, but I know we did touch on this. I mean, I know a little bit, but well, it's something to think about.
Let me clarify. I'm not suggesting that engineers come in and actually develop engineered specifications for how roads are to be maintained. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. We had a warrant this past year that was going to bring in an engineering firm to do a facility assessment. And this is not to say, this is not for the purpose of saying precisely what ought to be done. It's for the purpose of developing an assessment of the condition of the building.
Okay.
And so that we understand long-term, what kind of maintenance needs might we have in this building before we start putting in a new kitchen or doing this or that. And it's just useful to understand what the structural components are and so on. That's really what I'm talking about with the roads, is to just make sure that we have a good survey and really good data in understanding what the condition of our roads are. Right now, we're splitting the budget between the two
Road commissioners?
districts.
Yeah.
And I think it's a valid question just to understand what's the condition of roads in District A versus 1 versus District 2? And is continuing to split it in that way make a lot of sense? I don't know. And so I think this could help us sort of assess that as well. So it's not to engineer the roads, to design specifications that would be used by the road agents to do their work. It's really to get a survey done to understand what the condition of our roads are. And try to assess some priority. And I think that would be a very useful tool for the road agents. That's my own point of view. Okay, so if the road agents want to comment, please do.
Two things. So the whole engineering thing, I've kind of been playing it in my mind a little bit, because next year I do plan on going up on the H Road. So I've thought in my head that maybe we should hire an engineer, because the section I'm going to do is going to involve the dump in some way. And we know we have an issue.
Traffic issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're going to go dump a bunch of money in there, well, we're right there. So that was my one idea I was going to bring up later on, is about maybe we should hire an engineer about what we could do at the dump and try to incorporate that hill, or do something to make it, safer, because all we hear about is the concerns people have, the lines, all that stuff. So that was one thing I have thought about, maybe possibly getting an engineer for, but I haven't, came to you guys yet. I haven't made no phone calls, nothing like that. So that's where I'm like sitting with the whole engineer thing right now. So. And then,
do you think that we should have someone survey your roads, tell you which roads to do?
Well, no, I don't think all of them. I mean, maybe like the main ones you could have somebody look at. I mean, like your heavy traffic ones, maybe. But I don't, like our side roads. I mean, I don't really think we really don't need that right now. So, like maybe like the H Road, yeah, you might be able to have somebody look at that one. Maybe the county road, but I don't see all of them. I don't see the reason to have them all looked at.
Do we know? Do we have a multi-year plan that would indicate how much resource we need to be putting aside to cover roads over the next 5-7 years?
Yeah, I think we did it, I think it was 2 years ago. I think the Warrant Finance asked for like a 10-year plan.
Yeah, we've asked for a 1, a 3, and a 10.
Yeah.
3 and 10.
Have we got such a plan?
Well, you guys would have done it.
Yeah, you guys.
No, yeah, wait. Oh, no, I thought you meant
Did you,
asking.
have you turned one over to them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have.
A couple years ago.
Okay, I guess I need to see that.
You did.
Yeah, and I think. Oh, yeah, we did.
But that's something you probably should update every year, because things change. You guys were brand new.
Getting some of the roads paved and.
But in something like that, maybe that's where you say, this road, I'm probably going to need an engineered plan. Like he's saying, we've got these reserve funds, and maybe we start looking at it, soon.
So that's my other question. So say we have these reserve funds right now, could we use them on a project right now we're working on, or no?
No, without town meeting approval.
It needs to vote.
All right.
Yeah, we have to ask.
Because I'm coming up short with my paving money to do what I have to do. So I just thought I'd throw the question out. So, that's all.
Sorry about that.
Any comment? Is this for me to sign?
I think this is
Sign down there.
two different issues. What the road commissioners have presented is a maintenance plan,
We're looking for.
and which is good.
Yep.
But I believe, I understand what Tom's talking about. There's a big difference to maintaining the first part of Goose Pond Road, for example, and maintaining the Orchard Road. The first part of Goose Pond was built by the state, and it's got a pretty good base under it. You can tell by driving over it. It holds up pretty good. The Orchard Road has no base under it. So I think what Tom's saying, correct me if I'm right, Tom, I'm wrong. Even if I'm right, you still correct me, is to do an assessment on the roads so the plan could entail what we need to do to fix the road rather than just maintaining the road. That's my...
That's what I get out of it too. Same thing, right?
Yeah. Capital Improvement also got copies from the two guys on what their maintenance plan was. The thing with capital improvement, it's not maintenance. It's, are we going to need in 5 years, or 3, or 10, are we going to need a new whatever? You know, I know we're not going to need a new bridge on Canal, but, you know, hypothetically, oh, well, look at this, what this is, hey, and, you know, we're going to have to replace that. We know what we've got to do now, but, you know, looking forward. So if you don't look at what you're going to need in 5 or 10 years, your maintenance is you're always going to be behind the 8 ball. It's going to be hurry up and put Band-Aids on, and it's going to be more maintenance and more maintenance. And all of a sudden, what might have cost you, I don't know, $20,000 today, might end up costing you $40,000. So, you know, it's a way to look at it that way for capital improvements.
I've gone through one budget cycle here, and I was on a steep learning curve, quick learning curve. And the way I think about these things is that when you develop a budget, the budget ought to provide resources for not only the operating needs, but the capital needs of the organization. And when you don't have a long-term plan, assessment of what is needed to be put aside each and every year to ensure that we don't end up in a situation with a large amount of what I'll call deferred maintenance, because you didn't properly fund it. And then all of a sudden you got this huge nut that you've got to deal with all at once, and it makes its way into the tax rate. Just like buildings, I think roads are very similar. We ought to understand what the long-term funding needs are for roads, and that's what this assessment would help to clarify, and that the town makes sure it's putting those monies aside each and every year, so that when the need arises, the monies are there.
Right.
And it's just, to me, it's just good fiscal management to consider not only are we funding the salaries and wages and everything else, but we're also maintaining our physical plant, the roads, the buildings, etc. Please.
Fran Bodkin, Godding Road. I know some of you I don't. Nice to meet you. My husband left because he knows I can't stay in a room this long and not get up and speak. So here I am. I don't know anything about roads. I trust the road folks. I trust you all but I just have a procedural observation as a communication person who really thinks a lot about how we communicate and how we are trying to be consistent across the board. And flushing out ideas is always the way to do that. Being able to hear two sides of an opinion and two sides of a position, I think, is very valuable, and that is what government and business is supposed to be about, right? I just want to bring up the point that I heard Dave say, that we hire the road commissioners and we elect the road commissioners to do a job because they're the experts. I just want to pose out there, and I know this was a different point from earlier, we also elect a town forester to be an expert. So it's just a point of consistency of procedural functioning. So, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that up.
Hello again. Didn't the town approve or started putting together data in a system about what roads were going to be needed to be maintained and whatnot? Is that being utilized, or is that just something that's...
Is that being utilized, gentlemen? We talked about it. No. We've got to get on it. Seriously. I mean, we put money into it.
We're looking at getting an engineer to make assessments and stuff like that, where we have a program already in place that's supposed to be taking care of this.
Right.
So why spend the money when we're supposed to be doing something already? If it's not being done, then...
So what day can you two commit to next week? Just, Jennifer?
So I can't meet with you next week. We can do it the week after.
Okay, there we go. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we want a day.
Thank you.
Sorry, but
Yeah, I'm
it's,
fine.
you know...
We can do it on Monday.
This has been going on since I've been here, and you know, this is, I don't even know how many years it's been, but it's been a while. And people ask, and they ask, and when you ran for this job, you knew about this. And so we seriously need to at least get started. You know, Jen's put her time in, other people have put their time in, and,
I'll send you an email.
It's
29th, and I'll see you at 9 o'clock.
Just to clarify, this system is, I understand it, is about record keeping, what maintenance has been done. Is it also used as a forecasting tool?
Yes.
so that you can go into this
No,
program and,
yeah.
and look, if we get what they're doing every week, okay, if they come in every week, just for an hour, and just say, okay, this is what I did, it's put into the computer system, then any of us could look, print out, you know, whatever, like a spreadsheet, I'm not exactly sure. But anyhow, it would tell us, you know, okay, 5 years ago, they worked on this road, they ditched this one, they did that, so that they may not be, I'm not saying I want them to go anywhere, but we could have new road commissioners, and it would be nice to have records.
So it's an historical account?
Yeah.
It's what's been done?
And it can also do other things, but at this point, we just need to get the information in and use it as a, you know, record-keeping.
Okay.
I know David loves it.
Oh, I know, I think this program's complete garbage.
Well, if we could ever get it up.
It's only good for one thing, it's good for record keeping. I don't believe that it's something there that we're gonna plug stuff in, and we're gonna use this program to tell two guys that we elected, two people that we just elected.
And I don't think we need to tell
And the problem is,
them.
what happens is, if the computer tells you should do this, and they say, no, you gotta do that, then you got a problem. And I really think at the end of the day, you know, for record keeping, yeah. You know, I talked to our road commissioner the other day. I happened to be road commissioner for almost 10 years and said, hey, you know, by the way, San Page Road needs pavement. I only put a base coat on that. You gotta get to that before it gets bad.
When you
RSMS
when you came in though, okay, as road commissioner, you had somebody behind you that kind of knew what was going on, so you had somebody to help you. When we get people that didn't have relatives or friends or...
What do you mean I had someone to help me?
I'd like your dad had...
My father wasn't road commissioner. He was on the other side of town.
All right, so you didn't have him to help you, like say, hey, how do I do this? Or, so you had no help whatsoever.
But...
It would have been nice to have something, what I'm saying is, that's what I'm saying.
You know, luckily I
For somebody that comes in who has, you know...
I was working in the area, I knew what had been done in the last 10 years.
That's what I meant.
That program, I can understand doing that, but the problem is we can't depend on that program to tell our road commissioners where
No,
they
and I
should
don't
be
think it
working.
should.
And
I think it's more...
But that's the problem. The perception out there is that. The road committee is pushing that aspect that is, we're gonna be able to plug stuff in, and that's gonna tell these guys what to do. And that's not really what we should, I took that course, and
Yeah,
because
and
it's
so haven't we all.
evolved over and
Yeah,
over and 14 different times.
I mean, we've all taken it. And it's just, we made a decision, okay? We've purchased it, we've done it, we've spoken to people, and we've said, we need you to come in, we need you to come in, we need you to come in. I mean, we have to stand together.
They really should be.
At least let's try to utilize,
If you're not going to use the damn thing.
Hold on, excuse me.
and that's, you know,
The selectmen are speaking now. I'll open it back up for comment. If you want to come up and say something, you can.
So that's just my point, yeah, one way or the other, let's,
No,
you
no,
know.
and I do agree. We have the program now. I remember when I was road commissioner, this was a really big
I know,
deal,
I
right?
know.
And we were gonna make sure this got done, and it still hasn't been done. So, yeah, they should be doing it, but we really gotta look at the idea that this isn't the way we should be choosing how to do our roads.
No,
Okay. Thank you. Ray?
I'm in agreement as far as of what has been done, record keeping, that type of situation. But it can also be used in the aspect of, let's say, 3 years ago, this road was done. And now it's in bad condition again. Now, wouldn't that tell the general public that whoever did that road does shoddy work? And should he really be a commissioner?
I'm not sure it's that cut and dry, but.
Well, I understand that, but all I'm
I
saying,
think most people would gather that themselves, you know, if they go over a section of road that was done 3 years ago and it's back to the same was 3 years ago, they're probably not gonna vote for that guy again.
right. No, but I'm saying, I
I
mean.
tell you, that also could have been a budget consideration.
Yeah,
That
well-
maybe the road commissioner said, you know, I'd love to take this down and, you know, I don't know what they do something to the base and properly, you know, research.
They didn't have the
And maybe
money.
they didn't have the money to do it. That may be a reason why it's breaking up again. I don't know.
And to get back to the whole
There's
situation,
always more to it than,
to get back to the situation of your question that started this, as far as planning for the future of what can need to be done, I think that's a good idea to get it done in that aspect. But we have something that was put into place that's not being utilized, and that's a concern.
all I can tell you is in the last budget cycle, as a selectman, I had no idea, other than what was being proposed for the road budgets, I had no idea whether that was a level that could reasonably sustain us going forward. Would it go up? Would it go down? I just didn't know. And that information may be out there, and maybe I didn't ask enough questions, but I would love to understand long-term, what do we need for a road budget? That's all I'm asking about. I think that's important to know, so we can incorporate that in our tax planning and our financial planning.
I agree with you.
Just circling this around again, you asked about assessment of the road. I've been looking around at different people who do this kind of work for capital improvement. And one of the things I can tell you is this tool that we have right now, as a historical record, as you call it. One of the things a lot of these companies who are really advisory, you're paying them for their advice, is going to say, show us your records.
Yeah.
And if you can give them a clear
Maintenance record.
maintenance record, you know, there's not always going to be you around, a you who's got the experience and the history of 10 years. But if they have a written record, then they can say, oh, you know, whatever, don't spend $1 gazillion on this when really you only, you know, your maintenance has been beautiful. So you've got a spot over there that, you know, you have a perennial, but it's just used as a tool for these people that you're going to pay for their advice. And rather than saying,
Having them collect it.
we don't know, you know, rather than say, we don't know. We have the record, and I'm not going to put more work on the guys, but, you know, if they have to just input information, a half hour a week or something, we should do it.
Thank you,
Thank
Joyce.
you.
Will?
If you want us to put in an hour every week, when I come in on Monday mornings, can I just go in the back room and put, I mean, I'm usually here by like 6:30 in the morning. Can you just give me the code to the back door, let me go in there and do my thing? I mean, that's what, if you want me, that's what works for me. I'm here first thing in the morning, I can go right in there, do it, then it's done. But that's up to you guys.
Yeah, there's certainly things that we can do,
Yeah.
Will, about, you know, about getting you a laptop, and there's internet access in here, and you can come in here and sit down, and we can get it on a town computer, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know that she was gonna, you know what I mean? I'm
Well,
just,
no,
I'm
I have
not
no,
prepared
I have
to
no
meet you at
problem.
7 o'clock on the
I'm
29th. I mean-
I'm not.
Let's get
I'm
the
not-
first
I'm not-
meeting going at
Yeah, I
9,
know,
and then we
I'm
can
not
work at
against coming in
that.
there, but after the fact, like,
Once
We
you
can
can
work
do it on
around.
your own, you can do it whenever you
well,
like.
no, that's what I mean. If I can come in Monday morning, I drop
Absolutely.
my papers off,
Yep.
I go out back there for a half hour, did all this week, I'm
Absolutely.
done, it is done. There's no questions asked, and, oh, yeah, Will, you gotta come in and do your stuff. Well, I can't come today and here, and we're gonna be at this again. That's what would
Right.
work for me. If we can work something out, I'll do it every Monday morning.
We'll work with you.
Jennifer's gonna,
Yeah.
we'll be able to work.
I mean,
this.
yeah, I mean, if you know how to use the system now, you don't need me, you certainly can do it, start.
Well, no,
doing it
after we put
now.
after we put the stuff in next Monday, I mean, if I can do that, that will.
Mondays. 2 Mondays, not next
Right.
Monday.
If I can do that,
Yeah, I'm not there to babysit you. They're telling me to show
I
you
just
how
need
to
to be able to
use it.
get in and get on a computer.
We'll
Point
handle
taken,
that.
Will. Thank you.
Yes.
Handle that.
That's what's gonna work for me. If that's what works for you guys, that's
We will
what works
do
for me.
our best.
All
We
right.
promise.
Anything further on this?
I apologize to the board.
Thank you. Any other public comment about any matters? Okay. Pending. Did I miss something?
Well, no, we just had this meeting tonight, this informational meeting, and I feel like we had it, and then we just kind of dropped it. Were we gonna
Yeah.
discuss anything? Are we gonna, I don't know. That's,
Wasn't on here.
what was, I guess, what was the count of
What would you
people?
like to do? You
Actually,
want to discuss this now?
personally, I would like to make a motion and see where we're at. I don't feel like I should be making this decision. I would rather have the town make it, the people within the
But the
town.
motion's got to come from the selectmen.
Okay, so I'll make a
It can't come
motion.
from the townspeople.
Oh, you?
I thought this wasn't going to happen tonight.
Well, I don't know. That's why I brought it up. I wasn't quite sure what we were. Okay. So let's talk. I know it's
thought
late. I'm
No
sorry.
decision was going to be made this evening. I thought that this was strictly an informational session, and that you guys were going to take all the information
Okay.
and discuss it amongst yourselves, and then decide whether or not you thought that there was enough information given to you that supported you writing an article to put on the ballot.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
And the-
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't think the board has actually had put forth a position like that. So the board, any member of the board can make a motion at any time.
Absolutely.
And what I hear is one of our members making a motion. And so I appreciate your comments, but it's, the public comment on this may come back up. But for right now, let's let the board do its thing, and I'll come back to you.
No problem. Thank you.
I mean, what are the two you think? I mean, do we want to wait a little longer? I mean, or,
You want,
I mean,
I don't believe waiting any longer is going to accomplish anything at this point. I think either we make a motion at this point to put this forward to a November vote, let the town decide what they want to do. Because it's not, at the end of the day, it's not us making a decision. It's going to be the town of Acton. So we can prolong it. I don't think it's really going to amount to anything by prolonging it.
what was tonight again? What was the pros and
public
cons?
hearing. It was a public hearing to get public input, which we've done.
Right, which I'd like to know,
Personally,
like,
I think there are things that can be done to try to strengthen our current form of town government and address some of the concerns that we have.
All I've heard tonight is let's change it to March, and nobody's given me a good reason, other than the kids are still in school, why March is a better deal than doing it in
I
June.
think that's your sort of summary of what you heard. I have a different one. And I know there were a number of people that, by the pure count, it was 40 to 8 or whatever it
40 to
was.
8, she just
I don't
said.
know whether that's representative of what the public feels or not. At
Well,
this
that's what we've
stage-
gotten
at this
from
stage,
people today.
We're
I
just
mean-
trying to figure out whether or not the board wants to advance this now and put it on the ballot and let the public decide. I would prefer that we not take this motion tonight, but have you made a motion? Because if you have, I want to honor that.
well, I just wasn't quite sure what we were doing. I had started it. I just, I just feel like the townspeople should be able to decide on this.
I'll make a motion that we go forward to November, put this forward to the town, to vote for a secret ballot.
I'll second that.
Well, I've already expressed my point of view on this.
Yeah.
I think we're rushing this, and I'm not quite sure why. This has been, how long's the town
We've
been
been talking
incorporated?
about this for like
How long has
5
the
years.
town been
We have.
incorporated?
A long, long time.
Yep,
1830?
1831.
So, 170, 190, whatever, a long time. And we've been operating with this form of government, and I don't know what the rush is to move forward to November. I
I'm frustrated
understand-
that we don't have.
I understand people's point of view on it, but I do believe that this has now come forward. We've had about an hour's worth of discussion. We're going to change the form of our government.
We aren't changing anything. We're
No, but
allowing people in
we're
this
gonna
town to
put
make a
that
decision.
on. And I just think there are other considerations and things that should be examined before we move.
Why was it changed to June in the first place? Because there wasn't enough people that came? I mean, this is what I've heard, that it was way too long because you had the school and you had the town stuff at the same time, so then they split it up.
At the end of the day, what ends up happening is if we've put forward something the town does not want, they will vote it down.
I understand, David. Well, the motion has been made. Has it been seconded?
David made it, she seconded it.
I seconded it.
It's been made and seconded. I believe we've had public comment on this.
Yep.
And if somebody has something they want to say that hasn't already been said, then I'm fine with that. I just don't want to repeat what's already been said. Can we have one at a time, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce Bakshi. An informational meeting. You've heard from town people. What we have not heard from you is what are the options of, is it strictly voting, and are we going to have 72 articles in there? Because no one's going to go in a voting booth in 5 minutes and do 72 articles. So are we going to, would the proposal be we're going to separate it? I believe Mr. Nass said referendums on certain things. I think we need that information. How would you propose, but as a resource, not as an opinion thing, but what kind of, how are we going to do this? If we were to change, how are we going to do it? And we don't have that information.
And the motion was to put it forward, to put it on the ballot, so now it's our job to get that information to you. Public hearings and everything else obviously will happen before we actually have a vote on it.
I just come up, Mr. Chairman, to answer Kim's question.
Thank you.
Excuse me, the reason in the mid to late 90s, the town changed their accounting system. Just like Shapley, town was a calendar year and the school was a fiscal year. And it complicated some things for the auditor at the time because it's two different fiscal years, so it ended up being a mess. And the town was using accrued accounting at that time, and the school was using cash-based accounting. And so they decided to use the accrued accounting, and everything was done in June because historically the school town meeting was in June because of the fiscal year of the school, and they just moved the town meeting to June at the time. And that particular year, to get things coincided, they did a budget for a year and a half so that everything would line up.
Okay.
And that's how it started.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have concerns also that the whole process is, as Tom stated, it's a big change. And I really think you have to work through some logistics before you put this question forward, because I don't think it's a fair question just asking, do you want to go to a vote, when nobody knows how that's actually going to happen or what changes it's going to make.
All right, I'm going to thank you for everyone's comments. Obviously, we've got to take a vote on this, but before we do it, I sense a frustration that this is an issue that's been out there for some time that hasn't been acted on. And I think people just want us to fish a cut bait on this one. Let's move forward and make a decision. What I would suggest is, rather than putting this on the ballot in November. I know, we're in discussion, David. I'm not, we will post the question. But the selectmen are in a discussion before the vote. And what I would propose is that we bring forward in November the creation of a, call it commission, whatever it might be, of people that would actually lay out exactly what this would entail and what the options might be. The purpose of this is to increase participation in town government. That's the reason for doing this. And this may be the best solution. There may be others as well. And I think personally, before we change it, I would prefer that. So I'll stop there. The motion has been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries.
I need to ask a couple of follow-up questions. So just so I'm clear, so the motion is you want an order created to put on a November ballot to ask the voters to change the form of government from the open town to the referendum, correct? So legal will write the question, and I'll set up a timeline as to everything that you have to meet. That's what I'm doing.
Is there a difference between referendum and secret ballot?
No.
Okay.
Same thing.
Now,
Okay.
at the end of the day, say this goes in November, doesn't mean at that point, we still have to get everything. This is gonna tell us whether or not we wanna go to that route. Now, we can turn around and we can
No,
get
this will
everything
change
structured
it.
first.
This will change it,
yeah.
yes, this will change
Good.
it. But there are,
Change what?
if it passes in November, it will change the form of government.
Oh, yeah.
However, there are timeline requirements that you have to do it within so many days of the next town meeting, so I will lay all that out for you at your next meeting in August 31st, but,
All right.
and I'll have a question and everything prepared, and we'll have a timeline.
Very good. What do we have, announcements?
Pending.
I don't think we need to review. I think we've.
Yeah, that's everything.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just ask Adam, nothing on the new bridge fence? Did you meet with him? Okay.
Announcements. We have a planning board meeting August 18th at 6 o'clock. We have a rec committee August 21st at 9. Warrant and finance the 22nd at 6. Mary Grant Committee, August 28th at 2. Select Board, August 31st at 6. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.